So with the best of intentions, we can actually decay our own trust because we didn't take the risk of putting it out there. I mean, and we're people that do podcasts about this and talk about that. I've written books about that. And even we got lured into, well, I'm just not going to ask because I'm afraid he might think the wrong thing. Welcome to At the Table, the podcast that lives at the intersection between leadership, teamwork, organizational health, and culture. I'm your host, Pat Lencioni, joined by Cody Thompson, my regular co-host. How are we today, Cody?
I am doing great, Pat.
Very good. It's hot. It's hot in Tennessee. It's hot in Utah. And this podcast is hot. Tell us what it's about today.
Hot off the press. It's trust must be exercised.
That's right. We've recently come to understand that even really well-intentioned people who value trust sometimes misunderstand it or try to protect it, which only leads to atrophy, decay, and the loss of trust. And I think this is really important. This is going to be a real philosophical and theoretical one that has real practical implications. Where should we start, Cody?
Well, I like when you do this, Pat. This is kind of how I think the listener sometimes has a fun time kind of hearing how these things come about, because we don't just sit in a room and always think about like, oh, what's an interesting thing? But more often than not, it comes out of an executive retreat that we were at, or a conversation we had, or something we observed a leader do. And in some ways, this came out of a little bit of you like asking me and some of the other executive team members, like, tell me what you're working on. And that little phrase, it kind of encapsulates some of the conversation we want to have, because the implications of that phrase can mean a variety of different things.
Yeah. That's a great way to say it. And I think what I said back then was, there's two ways to look at that. Am I suspicious or am I curious? And when I'm curious, that's good. When you trust somebody, you should exercise that by being curious and say, hey, what are you working on? And I might even do that thinking, well, I might actually be able to make a suggestion to you or question you about that because I want to help you. And that's actually good. That's not a distrust. But if I'm asking you that question because I fundamentally don't think you're working hard enough or that your motives are pure, then that can come out as I'm suspicious of you, and that would erode trust. And so often we're afraid that by exercising our curiosity in the spirit of trust, that you might take it wrong, that I don't ask. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't want to say something that would be misconstrued. And then over time, I stop doing it and you stop hearing from me. And then actually suspicion can occur. And so this is one of those things, is if we don't actually take risks, we're going to lose trust because it's going to erode. And it's so counterintuitive because we think that, oh gosh, if I trust you, I should never ask you what you're working on, or I shouldn't question anything. I mean, it's a real nuance, but it's a critical one, because I've seen teams, and we've experienced it too, especially when we're not in the same place, that you have to be more intentional about asking questions, and you have to risk somebody actually maybe responding in a way that says, well, don't you trust me? And that's actually a good thing.
Well, I love that it's sort of a two-way street there, because you have to ask the question with this foundation of trust to say like, hey, it's not suspicion. Like another way to say it might be, I generally think you're probably working on the right things, but let's just explore that together and see what else you might, need to work on. Or so you might ask that in complete levels of like, well, I trust that our relationship's solid and healthy and we're not going to be undermined by that. The same thing is I have to receive it in that way, because if I receive it as suspicion, my response might be, well, let me over communicate or overinflate the things that I'm working on. Yeah, he must be asking me because he thinks I'm not doing enough. So let me put a lot of things on that list, or let me try to guess the things that he thinks are the most important. And then we erode trust by not having the right conversation. And so there's two, I love, it is going to be pretty nuanced, because there's one proactive way of eroding trust, which is that suspicion one. And then there's this sort of way that trust erodes when it atrophies if you don't exercise it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Reagan once said, and when we were talking about this, I don't know if it was you who said this or somebody else, that, oh yeah, trust but verify. But now that was the Cold War, and trust but verify was his way of saying, yeah, I'm going to trust them, but hey, we have to be suspicious. So I don't like using the trust but verify here because it does sound like suspicion. What it is trust and then enter into the conversation so that you know. And that only keeps that trust going. But you have to be willing for that other person. They might be having a bad day or they might not know where you're coming from. And they might go, well, are you concerned that I'm not doing the right thing? And the answer to that would be, no, I don't think that you would ever do the wrong thing on purpose. But I might actually see something that you don't see. So I'm asking you this just so I might be able to correct you or give you some feedback that could help you. And it is, I know people might be listening to this thinking, man, this is really subtle, but the difference between suspicion-based questioning and curiosity-based questioning is very small and it's critical. And if you don't exercise curiosity-based trust, it's going to start to feel like suspicion-based trust. And so I think what I want to do is talk about what prevents us from doing this.
Well, anytime somebody quotes me and Reagan at the same time, I'm in on that. No, don't teasing. No, I think you're right, Pat. I think the idea that we should explore is a lot around this. Trust is not we so often go in and help teams build trust. We've talked about that many times on podcasts and other avenues where we're saying like, hey, if you don't have trust, then you're pretty much hosed with all the rest of the 5 dysfunctions, right? And here's how you do it. You're vulnerable. You admit when you're wrong. You do these things. We go through personal histories exercise. But the thing is if you just stopped there, if you just built the trust, if you just put a bunch of bank deposits in the trust account and you never exercised it, it's worthless. And so we can talk about the suspicion and curiosity-based questioning, but the whole point of building trust is to use it. It's not to store up more of it.
Yes, that's a great way to say it. And yet it's our nature to want to preserve it. And now that we've built trust in our team, I wouldn't want to do anything that could jeopardize it. Mm-hmm. And if you're not willing to do anything that would jeopardize it, you are going to jeopardize it. It's crazy. It's like you were talking about a car. I got my son a used truck this weekend. I mean, that was after he graduated, I said I'd help him get a used truck. And I remember thinking like when you get it's used, which is good because it's not perfect, because then you're not as worried. But when you get a new truck, you're like, oh no, I don't want to get a ding. Well, the purpose of having a truck is to use it, which means you're going to get a ding. And sometimes when you finally ding it, you go, okay, now I'm really using this thing.
Yeah.
But tell us about the story about the car show that you went to the other day.
Yeah, so my father-in-law he restores cars. He's done many like beautiful restorations over the years, and he has a Austin Healey that he puts in car shows. So we were at a car show literally 2 weekends ago, and this kind of brought up this story, which is like there were probably 40 beautiful cars there, and there was one car that was immaculate, like just beautifully done. The interior looks pristine. Everything on the exterior is perfectly well done. And so I went over to talk to the owners of the car and just say, man, great job on the restoration. And I said, so do you guys drive it? And he says, only to the trailer and then park it when we get home. Like those are the only, so they trailer the car to every show, enclosed trailer. He literally drives it, 5 to 8 miles an hour to the trailer and then gets it unloaded when he's home. And I just thought, man, what a tragedy. Like what a beautiful car that they literally sit next to and look at their whole lives. Like this is an investment they made in building this beautiful machine and they don't get to enjoy it. And I love we recently got a very large ding in our truck, and it went from this, Lindsay got in a small accident, everybody's fine. But like we went from kids don't grab the handle and yank on it to like, we affectionately call it our beater truck now. And we're like, hey, it doesn't matter. It's super useful. And it's actually so liberating to actually use that. But I think it goes back to this idea that if your team has built up all this trust, but you're so terrified of using it, do you even have trust at all? Like if you're not exercising it, is it even real? Because if you're so afraid to make a withdrawal on it, then it might not be really genuine trust.
And you know what's ironic about that is like, and we've always said this, but it's worth repeating. It's like when you break trust and then you rebuild it, it's stronger. Scar tissue heals, but God made us so that our scar tissue heals stronger than tissue that's never been broken. And if we never test it, it doesn't get stronger. It actually gets more, it gets more fragile because we're afraid to. And I think about, we were talking about fantasy football today before we got on here. And so many teams, they get these players and they go, I just don't want them to get hurt. And so they don't take risks and they don't use them in the preseason to test things. And in games, they don't put them. And pretty soon it's like, well, why did we get this great player if we're not going to use him for something really amazing? And when we play defense in life, we don't actually use things well. And when we think that I don't ever want to have my intentions questioned, I will stop asking the questions. I'll stop challenging people. And that's not good for anyone. Trust is it's not only meant to be exercised, it's meant to be risked.
Yeah, we have a principal consultant, Tim Cooper, who uses this phrase a lot, and I've adopted it from him, which is healthy relationships are not fragile. Meaning like, hey, if we have trust, it's funny, you and I, we were in a meeting arguing about a podcast topic a week or so ago, and we have a new contractor that was like inside the room when we were having some conflict. And she walked out of the room and said, like, I've never been in a meeting with that much conflict before. And I think a lot of people measure, our meetings or our interactions on conflict, but it's only because we have this level of trust that, and we're willing to exercise it, that conflict doesn't feel risky or as risky as maybe in other circumstances, like other people who have not gone through that, who have not torn those muscles and actually, repaired that. And so what I think that's one of the keys is like, you can have, we often talk about conflict without trust is just politics, and the conflict with trust is the pursuit of the best idea. Well, that requires quite a bit of this spending it, right?
Yes. So if conflict without trust is politics and conflict with trust is healthy conflict, what is trust without conflict? That's overprotection at the expense. It's like, I'm never going to take my horse out to run. I'm afraid it's going to get injured. And that horse is going to atrophy and lose its ability to run. I mean, it's like, it seems like there's something really irresponsible about not exercising that trust and taking that risk.
Yeah, it's like you and ironically, it's even worse than that, because I like what you said at the beginning. It's like, if you don't use it, you lose it, actually. Yeah. So it's not just like, if you try to use a bank account analogy, like, oh, we're storing up all this money in this bank account that we never use for fun or activities or to buy people things or give it away. But if you never use it, that's sort of interesting because the bank account will keep growing. But I think the nuance that we're trying to get here is like, if we have some level of trust, if we built it up and we're not willing to exercise it, if you don't ask me that question, it actually is like a sieve. Like it actually decays. It actually diminishes the amount of trust if we don't exercise it.
It's so funny. So we've been going through this, Cody, because we are not in the same place. We're not in the same city. And our company has become decidedly much more remote. And we have people all over the place now. Because of the California diaspora, as we like to say, and after COVID and everything. And so I do think I was holding back, like I would think like, gosh, I want to look at your calendar, Cody, because I just know that I've been in your situation where I'd love to know what you're working on and go, hey, maybe you don't have to do that. But I would hesitate because I would think, I don't want him to think I'm distrustful, which is totally the wrong thing. And you know what that did is over time, it actually called into question how much I trusted you or how much I thought you trusted me. And it's such a crazy thing. So with the best of intentions, we can actually decay our own trust because we didn't take the risk of putting it out there. I mean, and we're people that do podcasts about this and talk about that. I've written books about that. And even we got lured into, well, I'm just not going to ask because I'm afraid he might think the wrong thing.
And quite frankly, I mean, we did an exercise yesterday where going through it, I was like, yeah, I probably should be doing more of that and less of that. Like it was not a, punitive posture. It was, hey, let's just, and again, I think it goes back to trust is the basis of the pyramid. and results, the team results are the number one. And if I was more interested in my own freedom, autonomy, winning on my side of the organization or whatever else it is, but if really it's the results of the organization, then I should be totally happy to let you dig into what I'm doing.
You know what? Yeah. And that's so interesting, Cody, because if it's trust for the sake of trust, or conflict for the sake of conflict, or commitment for the sake of, it's all because we're trying to accomplish something. It's the fruits of it all that matter. And when it comes to the 5 dysfunctions of a team, when we focus on one of them and want to prove that we're good at that, just to prove that we're good at that, it's all like, but how does this play out in the end? And we've always said, the purpose of teamwork is to get something done. And the purpose of drafting a good football player is to win games. The purpose of having a beautiful car is to know what it's like to drive it. Maybe they should just take the engine out of that car. Yeah. And polish the outside of it. But the purpose of a car is to drive. Mm-hmm. And the purpose of a team having trust is that so they can engage in good conflict, and so it can commit to things. It can hold each other accountable so that it can produce results. And the purpose of having a beautiful statue is to let people see it. And if a child knocks it off the shelf and you have to glue it back together at some point, that's okay. Yeah.
I think your warning too, Pat, of like how easy it is for us to kind of fall into that trap, even the author of the book, I think about even one of the themes that you teased out in the motive, which is like managing your team, this is what really well-intentioned leaders do that actually erodes trust, is they say, well, hey, I hired adults. They all know what they should be working on. So I'm never going to ask the question that you asked me, which is, hey, let's go through that together. And then you, in that part of the book, you talk about like, well, we see that as micromanaging. It's like, no, that's not micromanaging at all. That's managing. Let's stop calling it micromanaging and let's align around this so that we can achieve results. It's all about, the best organizations, the healthiest teams actually achieve more than the ones that aren't.
Yeah. And if somebody wonders if the other person is being suspicious, then the only way to preserve trust is to say, hey, do you not trust me? And they go, no, I totally trust you. I just want to help you. Mm-hmm. And you need to have that conversation. So, the last thing I want to say, Cody, is in some ways, I think this comes down to the leader not being a wuss, because I can be kind of a wuss. And what I mean by that is, if I'm afraid of you feeling untrusted, I can't let that hold me. I need to be able to explain it and go, no, I do trust you. Here's why. If I don't ever want to have that conversation with you, then I will wuss out and not do the right thing. So I do think it comes to the leader. The leader has to decide to exercise that trust first. And if the leader doesn't do it, then other people won't.
Yeah, there has to be some level of risk involved. Yeah. It's not that sterile or tidy.
Yeah. I talked to somebody the other day, I don't know who it was, it said, I love your podcast because they're under 20 minutes. And we're busy. Everybody's busy. And I think a lot of people still listen in their car in between a commute. So we like to keep these short. We hope that they're really practical things you can do. And go talk to your team about this and say, hey, I think we trust each other, but are we exercising it enough, or is it atrophying and it's making us scared? And I think that could be a real productive conversation.
Love it.
All right, that's it. All right, thanks for joining us. We love talking to everybody on At the Table. And go ahead and smash the like button and
smash. I love it.
Tell your friends and family.
Yeah,
put a smoke signal up. Tell everybody to watch it. We do appreciate it. A lot of people are glad when people share it with them. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time on At the Table. God bless.